Last week at the swap meet, I picked up this little gem for 15 bucks, an old Stanley Bailey No.5 bench plane. Now, it looks to be complete. It seems as though everything is in decent condition, decent restorable condition anyhow, but it certainly needs to be cleaned up. Needs cleaned up, tuned up, and well, just basically needs somebody to take care of it. So I'm going to go ahead and clean it up and restore it. Now, I'll be the first to say that I don't really know a whole heck of a lot about planes, about using them, about setting them up, about the name Stanley Bailey. What is it a Stanley or is it a Bailey? So I did a little bit of research online and determined that Mr. Bailey was a one-time compatriot of Mr. Stanley. In fact, I believe that Bailey came up with some patent designs that Stanley wound up with, and eventually they wound up becoming competitors. Eventually Mr. Bailey died, and Stanley, having partially bought some of the rights to Bailey's designs, and partially as a nod to his contribution to their success, they started stamping the name in the bed of the plane. So it's a Stanley Bailey plane. There you go. So here's some of the condition. The chip breaker, I've learned that this is called, is kind of sorry. Not in very good condition at all. And the blade, or I've heard it referred to as the iron, also needs some help. I'm going to do this carefully so that I remember how it all goes back together. I'm sure that I'll have this all very well memorized by the time that I'm done with this, but I don't want to go screwing it up right off the bat. These fasteners don't appear to be buggered up at all. I don't want to be the first one to mess them up. I've learned that this piece is called the frog. Terminology wise, I believe this is called the tote and this is the knob. So I'm going to go ahead and take all that off very carefully. And there it is, about as far as I'm going to disassemble it at the moment, for a couple of reasons. One, there's stuff like this that feeds into another adjustment. This screw right here does. And I'm not sure exactly what that adjustment does, so I'm going to wait to take that out until I can take it out, clean up the bed, I believe that this part is called, the base, and count those threads, or count how many screws it takes to back it off, and then put it right back in so I don't lose that adjustment. I'm sure there'll be some figuring to get it all set back up right, but the less stuff that I have to reinvent, the better. Some of this stuff looks like it has some promise. This adjustment knob on the back, pretty ugly. However, the threads, and it's brass, I do believe. Pretty nice and shiny in there. Also, the bolt, screw, however you want to call it, that holds down the knob here, really shiny. Same thing with the bolt that holds down the tote. So this might be pretty slick once we get it cleaned up. The wooden bits, I wasn't quite sure
right off the bat whether they had been painted or stained or what the deal is. But if you look closely, you can't really see it very well here. A little bit here. But especially on the knob, it's not painted. It's just stained and like lacquered over. So that is going to look really sweet once we get it cleaned up. The frog is starting to clean up fairly well. Hit it on the left side with the wire brush. Do the rest of it with the wire brush and then hit it with some sandpaper. I'm pretty happy with how the frog has turned out. I've got all the machine surfaces cleaned up and sanded. And now my last quandary is there's this little, I don't even know what you call this guy, a little stirrup looking thing that's still kind of cruddy. And in order to get it out, you have to press out that pin or punch it out. I'm really a little bit leery of doing that. So I'm going to put this thing in the parts cleaner solution, see how clean it gets, and then determine if I need to take that all the way apart. Maybe someday I'll be grown up enough to have a parts washer of my own, but for now, this suffices. This vat of goop works pretty good. Made for carburetors and such, but cleans all sorts of metal stuff. It seems like the carb dip stuff maybe was not the best idea, because as I found out, like it says in the directions, do not spill onto painted surfaces. This being a painted surface, it ate my paint away a little bit. I mean, not terribly. The paint was in pretty sorry shape to begin with anyhow. But all that said, I'm not going to use it on the rest of my plane. Instead, I have here some gasoline. I was told that that works pretty well as a solvent, so we're going to give it a shot. And smell terrible. First things first, this screw here, that's an adjustment that I have no earthly idea exactly how to set properly, that I was worried about taking out because I'm not sure how many threads it is. Well, it occurred to me that I can find out exactly how many threads it is. If you got something like this, you want to screw it in till it bottoms out and count how many turns that is. So, half, 1, half, 2 and a half, and there's 3, and it's bottomed out. So, when I go to reinstall this, all I need to do is screw it all the way in and back it out 3 turns. I have on my Q-tip here some penetrating oil, which is supposed to be good to keep things. It's good as a preservative oil. Keeps things from flash rusting once you've just exposed metal to the atmosphere for the first time. Keeps paint from drying out. It's just kind of an all-around decent thing to lather up your tools with. Put some of this business back together here. Let's go here with this guy. 3 turns back from being bottomed out. Half, 1, half, 2, half, and 3. Screw that back in there. I guess what this little tab in conjunction with that adjustment that I don't know what it does, this guy down here, when you loosen things up, since that tab goes into, let's see if we can see it here, the light. Since that tab slots onto that screw, when you tighten or loosen it, after loosening up the screws here on the frog, it moves the whole business forward or aft. I'll have to have somebody smarter than me teach that to me. If you know why you would move the frog and the whole assembly forward and aft, what function that would serve, please say so in the comments. What's next? This is of course just a test fit of sorts. I need a little bit of gratification to see how this thing's coming together. Okay. Alright, so I just adjusted that thing that I didn't know what it does. And here's why. When I put this all together, it looked like the frog, the line where the frog meets the rest of the body of it, looked like the frog was a little bit back from it, so that when you put the iron in, it would be resting on the body rather than the frog. So I moved that forward just a little bit. I don't know if that's a proper thing to do or not, but we'll figure it out. That guy in there. This is all together. Alright. Back that all the way out. Put that guy on there. Okay. So far, so good. Here, you want to see the knob on there? Of course, I'm still going to clean up the knob and the thing on the back side called the tote. The handles. Still going to clean up all that business. Starting to look like a plane that somebody cares about. So here's the thing. I'm at a bit of an impasse with this bed, body, whatever the proper name of the main part of it is. The gasoline did take off a good bit of the paint back here and kind of around the perimeter of it. I still am going to clean up all the rest of this. This will all be nice and shined up. But the decision that I have to make is, do I strip all this down and repaint it, because that'd make it look nice and clean and new, restored, really, or do I just leave it how it is, because it's going to be a user, it's not a showpiece, it's not being resold, it's for me. I just leave it like that because it kind of adds to its charm. So let me know what you think in the comments, and on the next video we'll work on getting this guy the rest of the way together, hopefully.